had to do with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And you're carrying water for Elon Musk today, aren't you?
From what I can see, Elon Musk is abusive about me virtually every single week. But it's a free country, so
but you
he's
never
entitled
stop
to do
trying to ingratiate yourself with him.
Wrong.
Well, I mean,
wrong.
You are familiar with the fact.
Wrong. I have.
You are familiar with the fact, Mr. Farage,
I have had a public fallout with Elon Musk.
that Donald Trump's campaign benefited to the extent of $250 million from Elon Musk.
How much?
You are familiar with that, correct?
How much did Mr. Zuckerberg give to the Democrats? I mean, this is what happens, and people are.
Well, he didn't give any money
on Musk. Let me be clear.
To the Democrats. He was sitting behind Trump with the rest of the tech bros, and you are here today to impress all of those tech bros, including Elon Musk. Isn't that correct?
I'm going to answer your question very, very honestly.
You need money from Elon Musk in order to get elected Prime Minister of Great Britain. That's the bottom line. Isn't that correct?
We consider all day, as long as the chairman allows us. I don't mind. I had a very public falling out with Elon Musk.
But you're still trying to get some money from him, though.
Over a political issue.
It's not about the prior disputes.
I'm sorry,
you're trying to ingratiate yourself with the tech bros by coming over here and trying to.
Can I get a cup of coffee or something?
And you're arguing.
We'll be here a long time.
What you're arguing is that the citizens of Great Britain should pay a tariff.
The unthinkable just happened live on social media. Elon Musk, the world's most powerful tech billionaire, publicly humiliated Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer in front of millions, leaving Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner speechless. This wasn't a staged political attack or a heated debate. It was raw exposure, a digital takedown unfolding in real time, and the ramifications are already sending shockwaves through Westminster. Musk didn't just criticise Starmer, he laid bare years of decisions, failures and contradictions that now threaten to define the next election and possibly Starmer's political career. Every tweet, every post, every revelation was a calculated strike, exposing the Prime Minister's record in a way no traditional media outlet dared. The world is watching, opinions are polarised and the tension is palpable. This isn't commentary, this is a masterclass in modern political warfare, and it all began when Musk decided enough was enough. Elon Musk's confrontation with Starmer didn't start with a headline. It started with a pattern, a series of actions and failures that Musk identified as systemic injustice. For years, ordinary British citizens have been swept into legal trouble for minor infractions on social media, while serious criminals and convicted offenders face minimal consequences. The discrepancy is glaring, and Musk, with a platform reaching hundreds of millions, saw it as a moral and political crisis demanding immediate attention. Bernie Spaforth, a 55-year-old woman, remains in custody simply for sharing information about the Southport attacker. She wasn't threatening anyone, she wasn't inciting violence, yet she's locked up in a system that prioritises control over fairness. In contrast, violent criminals, drug traffickers and grooming gang members often walk free or receive suspended sentences. Musk calls this two-tier justice, and he isn't shy about exposing it. This perceived hypocrisy ignited his response, pushing him from casual commentary into strategic action. Every post Musk shared dissected these cases with surgical precision. Peter Lynch, a grandfather jailed for attending a protest peacefully, ended his life in custody, the shame of being labelled extremist by a system that refused to hear his side, proving too heavy to bear. These cases, isolated in the media, rarely sparked widespread outrage, but Musk's global influence amplified every detail, turning each story into a spotlight on systemic injustice. He didn't just retell the facts, he framed them in a narrative of accountability, drawing clear lines between government inaction, prosecutorial failures, and the suffering of ordinary citizens. The tipping point came with revelations about the grooming gang scandal. Starmer, as Director of Public Prosecutions from 2008 to 2013, oversaw a period when critical child abuse cases were delayed, dropped, or systematically ignored. Whistleblower Maggie Oliver, a former detective with Greater Manchester Police, revealed that in 2005 she returned from bereavement leave to find Operation Augusta, a live investigation tracking 100 paedophiles abusing dozens of children, completely shut down. Not a single perpetrator faced prosecution. Vulnerable children were left unprotected, while bureaucratic decisions favoured political optics over justice. Musk seized upon this narrative. He reposted Oliver's testimony highlighting Starmer's directive in 2008 instructing prosecutors to deprioritise grooming cases involving Pakistani Muslim gangs targeting young white girls. The directive, prioritising community relations over criminal justice, struck Musk as an unforgivable moral failure. In real time, he began exposing these details to a global audience, but Musk didn't stop at outrage. He began coordinating strategic action. Private meetings with political allies, discussions about Reform UK's rising influence, and potential pressure points in both British and American political channels were set into motion. Musk's digital platform became a battleground. Tweets that could reach 200 million people functioned like precision strikes, forcing the mainstream media to respond or remain irrelevant. The narrative he crafted painted Starmer not just as a politician who failed justice, but as a figure whose silence enabled systemic abuse. The tension escalated further when Angela Rayner, caught off guard during a live discussion, struggled to respond, leaving a public vacuum Musk exploited to reinforce his argument. The pattern of selective enforcement, political correctness, overriding criminal accountability and media complicity became impossible to ignore once amplified across Musk's global reach. Ordinary citizens, activists, and international observers were watching every development unfold, debating whether this digital onslaught could genuinely influence a sitting prime minister. Musk's method was unprecedented. He wasn't relying on rallies, petitions, or editorial op-eds. He leveraged the speed and reach of social media, turning exposure into pressure, outrage into momentum, and public scrutiny into a weapon. Each revelation about Starmer's past, each contradiction exposed, fueled Musk's narrative and drew viewers into a story that combined justice, politics, and scandal into a live spectacle. The real question emerging from this unfolding crisis isn't about Musk's motives. It's whether Starmer can withstand the intensity of global scrutiny, relentless social media pressure, and the growing narrative that his government operates with impunity toward ordinary citizens while failing the most vulnerable. What started as a series of isolated complaints, legal anomalies and whistleblower reports has now become a high-stakes political drama, and Musk sits at the centre, orchestrating every move with precision and relentless focus. The confrontation between Musk and Starmer escalated rapidly as the digital evidence mounted. Every tweet, every post, every thread meticulously highlighted the stark contrast between ordinary citizens facing harsh penalties for minor offences and the powerful being shielded from accountability. One of the most damning aspects Musk emphasised was the grooming gang scandal, a series of crimes that left countless children traumatised, while those responsible often escaped prosecution. Musk framed Starmer's past as a prosecutor not merely as administrative failure, but as deliberate negligence, illustrating a system where political optics consistently trumped justice. The narrative was reinforced by whistleblowers like Maggie Oliver, whose revelations painted a picture of systemic obstruction, cases dropped or ignored, and directives instructing prosecutors to deprioritise certain investigations for fear of stirring controversy. Musk dissected these failures in posts that combined clarity with outrage, ensuring a global audience could understand the severity and scope of Starmer's inaction. Meanwhile, high-profile citizens, academics and activists began echoing Musk's assertions, amplifying the pressure. Social media algorithms accelerated the spread, turning a story previously confined to investigative reports into an international spectacle. Angela Rayner's visible unease during live exchanges became a focal point. Her attempts to redirect questions or downplay events only reinforced Musk's narrative of political leadership under siege, a government struggling to defend its record, while every misstep was magnified. Musk's approach was not impulsive. It was highly calculated. Every detail he exposed, every legal discrepancy he highlighted, functioned as a strategic maneuver in a broader campaign to challenge Starmer's authority. Ordinary citizens reading about arrest of peaceful protesters, grandparents detained for social media activity, and victims denied justice were now witnessing the accumulation of these incidents into a coherent critique that left little room for denial. Musk's global influence turned these narratives into real-time accountability, making it impossible for Starmer's administration to operate under the radar. The financial and political stakes were immense. Musk's capacity to sway public opinion extended beyond borders, influencing both British political discourse and American foreign policy considerations. Discussions within Trump's circle regarding trade restrictions, defense agreements, and intelligence sharing highlighted the tangible consequences of Musk's exposure campaign. Starmer, who had previously relied on media narratives to control perception, found himself forced into constant reaction, unable to regain the initiative. Musk's digital warfare turned every communication channel into a potential vector of accountability. Ex-post dissected legal failures, shared whistleblower evidence, and contrasted Starmer's actions with those of other political figures, while followers, commentators, and analysts spread the information further, creating an echo chamber that Starmer could not easily counter. The implications of Musk's strategy went beyond mere embarrassment. They threatened to reshape public trust in the Prime Minister's competence, expose vulnerabilities in government institutions, and create a precedent for tech-driven political influence. Each revelation about dropped grooming gang cases, mismanaged prosecutions, or disproportionate arrests contributed to a narrative of systemic failure that was impossible to ignore. The speed at which this information moved, coupled with Musk's ability to frame it compellingly, created a sense of immediacy and urgency unparalleled in recent British political history. The intensity of the coverage forced political allies and opponents alike to react, sometimes contradicting themselves in the process, further validating Musk's position. By turning Starmer's record into a live global trial, Musk had weaponised transparency, making the Prime Minister's every action subject to worldwide scrutiny. As public debate intensified, ordinary citizens became participants in the unfolding drama, sharing insights, calling for accountability, and debating the ethical and political consequences. The pressure on Starmer grew exponentially as digital narratives collided with traditional media coverage, creating a feedback loop that amplified outrage, suspicion, and political tension. Every new post, every retweet, every viral video became another layer in the campaign that Musk orchestrated with precision. The British government, for the first time, faced a threat that was not conventional political opposition, but a coordinated, strategic, and highly visible digital assault that leveraged both evidence and narrative to weaken Starmer's authority. Citizens who had long felt powerless watching injustices unfold were now empowered by visibility, their voices amplified alongside Musk's platform. Social media became a tribunal, the courtroom of public opinion in which Starmer's record, previously obscured or ignored, was laid bare for millions. International observers watched closely, recognising the potential precedent this digital confrontation could set, a billionaire using global influence to hold elected officials accountable in ways traditional political mechanisms could not. As Musk's campaign continued, Starmer's office remained reactive, issuing statements that failed to confront the substantive allegations, while Rayner's silence or defensive gestures during live coverage reinforced the narrative of a government under siege. Each new revelation added pressure not only domestically, but also on the international stage, where allies and trade partners began evaluating Britain's governance under a microscope. Musk's strategic framing of events, combined with real-time amplification and public engagement, created an environment in which political accountability was no longer optional but inescapable. The unfolding saga demonstrated the power of technology, global networks, and relentless exposure in shaping political outcomes, illustrating that in the 21st century, information could be as potent as legislation, votes, or public office. The consequences for Starmer were mounting, and every hour brought a new wave of scrutiny, outrage, and debate. What began as criticism had now transformed into a full-scale digital inquisition, a relentless unravelling of authority that left the Prime Minister's credibility teetering under the weight of evidence and public perception. The digital battle escalated further as Musk's posts began revealing the depth of Starmer's past decisions, creating a narrative that left the British government scrambling for answers. Each revelation meticulously traced the consequences of prosecutorial inaction, highlighting how thousands of lives were affected by policies and directives issued under Starmer's leadership. Families of victims, ordinary citizens who had been targeted for minor offences, and whistleblowers who risked their careers all became part of a growing, undeniable pattern of injustice. Musk emphasised the emotional toll of these failures, the despair of grandparents jailed for attending protests peacefully, the anguish of children denied justice, and the frustration of citizens whose voices were silenced for speaking the truth. Angela Rayner's public discomfort during live coverage became emblematic of the government's struggle to maintain control over the narrative. Musk's digital assault wasn't limited to tweets. He used every facet of social media to amplify the scandal, retweeting whistleblower evidence, posting historical documents, and juxtaposing them with current government actions to expose systemic contradictions. The narrative was simple yet devastating. Starmer's administration had prioritised political optics over public safety, and ordinary people paid the price. The speed at which Musk delivered this information left the Prime Minister and his team unable to respond effectively. Every new post generated international attention, forcing both media outlets and political commentators to confront evidence that had been previously suppressed or ignored. The ramifications extended beyond politics. They began affecting the economy, trade relations, and diplomatic negotiations. Discussions within the Trump administration regarding potential trade restrictions, defence agreements, and intelligence cooperation underscored the real-world impact of Musk's campaign. The stakes were no longer theoretical. They were tangible, immediate, and potentially catastrophic for Starmer's government. Musk's strategy relied not only on exposure, but also on sustained pressure. Every tweet was designed to provoke questions, incite discussion, and compel action. Public engagement skyrocketed as millions of users debated the morality, legality, and political consequences of Starmer's past decisions. Ordinary citizens who had previously felt powerless found themselves empowered by Musk's amplification of their concerns, turning digital outrage into a global conversation. The mainstream media, once hesitant or complicit in bearing stories about grooming gangs and legal failures, was forced to follow the narrative Musk set. Each misstep by Starmer or Rayner was broadcast instantly, creating a feedback loop in which public scrutiny intensified with every passing hour. Musk's influence was unprecedented. He wasn't simply a commentator, but a central figure in shaping the narrative, turning historical failures and contemporary mismanagement into a high-stakes political spectacle. Starmer's office issued statements attempting to mitigate the damage, but they lacked substance, failed to address specific allegations, and often contradicted previous positions. Each evasion further reinforced Musk's portrayal of a government unwilling to confront its own failures. The digital onslaught also highlighted the contrast between Starmer's handling of political opponents and Musk's ability to mobilise public opinion. While the government relied on traditional media filters, legal constraints, and bureaucratic processes to control perception, Musk leveraged speed, transparency, and global reach to bypass traditional gatekeepers entirely. The cumulative effect was overwhelming. Public confidence in Starmer's leadership began to waver. Supporters questioned the administration's competence, and opposition parties gained momentum as citizens demanded accountability. Musk's posts didn't merely criticise, they created tangible consequences. The combination of public exposure, political scrutiny, and international attention created a climate in which Starmer's decisions could no longer go unchallenged. Each revelation about mishandled cases, dropped prosecutions, and selective enforcement resonated deeply with audiences who had been quietly observing the erosion of justice under the surface. The global audience witnessed a prime minister under siege, unable to provide satisfactory explanations, while Musk's platform amplified the voices of those demanding truth and accountability. This was more than a scandal. It was a digital reckoning, a relentless exposure of contradictions that Starmer could not ignore. Musk's strategy demonstrated the immense power of information in the modern era, showing how a single individual with resources, reach and strategy could challenge political authority on a global scale. Ordinary citizens, international observers and political analysts alike were forced to reckon with a new reality. Digital influence could alter political outcomes in ways previously unimaginable. Each hour brought new developments, new evidence and new reactions, making it increasingly clear that Starmer's ability to govern without scrutiny had diminished. Musk's campaign wasn't just about humiliation, it was about reshaping accountability, redefining political pressure and creating a precedent for what global digital influence could accomplish. The tension, suspense and stakes continued to grow, leaving the world watching closely as history unfolded in real time.